everyone. Thank you for joining us in this first information session of Emerging Technologies Initiative. The Emerging Technologies Initiative is a new concept and an idea that three partners put together, and we are starting today with its information session. And today we have with us Dr. Arabinda Mitra from Office of Principal Scientific Advisor and Ambassador Renu Pall from the new Emerging Strategic Technologies Division of Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. And also we have team of ETI, Emerging Technologies Initiative from Science Policy Forum. All the three partners who have nucleated this idea. And then this is pretty open in terms of who would be engaging in this whole initiative. And today's session is all about knowing what is ETI and who can participate, what are the benefits, and what is the scope of this initiative. And we are excited to kickstart it today. Without further ado, let me quickly call upon Ambassador Renu Pall to give us a glimpse about what this initiative and how she sees this from the NEST's point of view. Over to you, Ambassador Pall.
Thank you, Chagun. Let me first tell you very briefly what is NEST about. NEST, the new emerging strategic division, strategic technologies division, was created in MEA in January this year, primarily to assess the requirements for new emerging and strategic technologies in India in collaboration with our line ministries in Delhi and also our state governments, and facilitate as synapses, the interlocutor and the partner interfaces. We will also be building policy interfaces with key partner countries and international organizations in the NEST areas, and we will be the nodal point to evolve and coordinate Indian positions on technology governance rules, standards, architecture in the multilateral, bilateral, or unilateral context. The Emerging Technology Initiative that all three partners have launched is something that we are very excited about because it is a participant-driven, team-driven initiative, and it is meant to make new emerging technologies a part of everyday life in India. We're trying out a new concept, a form of crowdsourcing, if you will, to increase technology absorption in India. We want to understand, analyze, anticipate the impact and utility of new emerging technologies with relevance to India. And we want to identify collaborative opportunities in a whole range of emerging technologies. We have given you 9 indicative verticals on our web link, which we have also annotated with a few horizontals. And it is frankly for you to further interpret and extrapolate these into applications which would be of relevance to the Indian citizen, Indian society, Indian economy. We therefore see this as a unique opportunity for everyone who wants a stake in the emerging technologies usage in India to come together to innovate, create a strategy, put together a team, give an EOI, and bring transformative emerging technology experience into the Indian economy and the market. We want to do this in a sustainable manner, and that is why we hope that the EOIs will build towards an indigenization roadmap, because that will bring in stakeholding. We would like to see the exploration of scalability and affordability of new emerging technologies. That's critical, we feel, and that's why our emphasis to take your strategies towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. You will find that all three partners, the PSA's office, the Science Policy Forum, and NEST Division in MEA, will be working as the synapses constantly to help the teams to reach out to partners for implementation of their ideas and applications. The first step to crowdsourcing techniques is really about increasing awareness. So in this context, what do we consider to be new emerging technologies? What are their applications? How are they relevant to India? And how should we be going about it? And that is where these conversations like today's conversations come in, to get your views, your ideas, your plans, your strategies. And we hope to have a few of these conversations, maybe organize them thematically. We look forward to your strategies, for instance, on AI to assist consumer and industry requirements in India, see the play of augmented and virtual reality to applications in education, explore domestic AI devices and industry-oriented processes of AI, see the utility of AI for traffic management, for instance, weather forecasting, store and inventory management, so it can be applicable across the scale. Its efficacy in increasing output in agriculture through judicious use of fertilizers or pesticides, for instance, in healthcare, in terms of non-invasive diagnostic technologies in tracking and nursing care, getting right medication to a particular orientation of a patient, AI applications to redefine ICUs from the patient's perspective. I think COVID is teaching us that that is really the need of the hour. AI in space, seeing progression in autonomous vehicles, intelligent transportation systems, drone technologies. There are a whole series of applications. In quantum technologies, we would like to see quantum computing, quantum biology, quantum devices, quantum simulators, quantum communications, quantum sensing, and meteorology applications, quantum processors, qubit innovations, advances. We want to hear your ideas and strategies on sustainable technologies, which would be eco-friendly and viable, and perhaps incorporate a little of these various verticals: AI, machine learning, big data, edge computing, robotics, open source software, solutions which would scale up. In the energy segment, of course, waste to value technologies, but also maybe development of the energy storage grid from the micro to the macro, technologies for cleaning up of not just oil spills, but PAHs, hydrogen fuel cells, new battery chemistries, high performance, low cost, clean energy materials. We also hope to see some EOIs on deep ocean technologies. And we hope to see your strategies for emerging technologies in bioengineering. There again, the canvas is vast: neural engineering, tissue engineering, organ 3D printing, bioinformatics for diagnostics and therapeutic use, robotic processes of relevance in healthcare. We would like to see technologies to assist limited mobility issues, whether due to age or illness. We would like to see technologies to assist people suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia, for instance. We would like to see technologies to share best practices and treatments, whether on COVID-19 or other diseases, phytopharmaceutical drug development, non-invasive technologies, tracking and predictions to reduce medical stockouts, which is becoming a challenge again in the COVID context. I leave it to my other colleagues to talk about the other verticals mentioned. We don't promise financing to the participants of ETI, but we will attempt, as I said, to become the synapses to connect your ideas to the correct stakeholders. Now, it is important to understand that ETI is not a one-time event. It is a process. And we hope that ETI will develop a momentum and become a continuous basis to bring together scientists in India and abroad, NRIs, PIOs, as also the foreign scientific community, to innovate in new emerging technologies in one of the largest and most dynamic markets in the world. Given the dynamism and progression in technologies today, it is more important than ever before to avoid barriers or disconnects between the knowledge generators, the knowledge implementers, and the knowledge users. It is also important that an increasingly enabling environment incentivizes research to meet development priorities. There needs to be a constant referral of theory against practice, and there has to be synergy. And that is what we are trying to bring in, the synergy between the flow of evidence-based research and knowledge from the sciences to the policy formulation, to application and implementation on the ground. Sustainable development today requires managing all the three pillars: social, economic, and environmental, which means that the utility of emerging technologies will be in direct proportion to how they are seen as visibly human-centric and of value to citizens. And therefore, there needs to be a closer synchronization on the emerging norms and regulations for many of these emerging technologies, because these technologies have universal relevance. They have cross-border relevance and utility. It's important to have a robust international dialogue to universalize a more value-positive narrative on the use of emerging technologies, and we would like to have your participation as we coalesce the Indian view on this. So it's not just about science, it's not just about the commerce and the commercial value of these technologies, but it is actually and fundamentally about and how to better the quality of life, if you will, in a sustainable and eco-friendly manner. So we hope that we will also see some EOIs focus on what is the normative framework to ensure the responsible use of emerging technologies. So I'll stop there and let you hear from my other colleagues, and then we'll try and take on your questions. Thank you. Thank you, Chagun.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ambassador Paul. I think you touched upon both the technology spectrum, of course, not limited to what you just spoke, but already it's a vast spectrum that you touched upon. And then not only about the technology development, but its aspects of impact in various angles. Also, right now we have our next speaker, Dr. Arabinda Mitra from the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor. The angle in which we want to take this conversation forward is the positioning of this initiative, how well it is positioned between the MEA's technology division and the Office of PSA, which drives a lot of national level technology governance matters, which you just left, Ambassador Paul, with the ethics issues and governance issues, and then Science Policy Forum as its implementing platform. Dr. Mitra, over to you to give us your vision about this initiative.
Thank you, Chagun. Very good evening and a very good day to all of you from wherever you are joining. And thank you for joining this event. As you know, as a scientist, let me allude to a very important aspect today, that science and technology is no more domain. We have seen the pandemic era, and even the pre-pandemic era, where science and technology is seen to be pervasive, cutting across all sectors of life today, be it cybersecurity, be it disaster management, you name it. For every aspect that we talk about today, there is an angle of science and technology. And therefore, there is a huge demand and aspiration which the polity and people look upon to scientists and technologists to deliver real-world solutions. These real-world solutions, as far as India is concerned, needs to be very inclusive, needs to be very affordable, needs to be very accessible. And this is perhaps what, in fact, India proposes in the entire value chain of technology innovation. Capability to do things without actually compromising on the quality, at the same time, cutting the cost and making it affordable to serve a large section of the society. So that is the value proposition which India brings today on the table. We all know that there is a very rapidly changing paradigm of the intersection of nano, bio, and digital technology, which is really going to be in many ways very disruptive and will create and have a major impact on employment, security, the way we work, on social equity, as well as global relationships. So it's therefore very important for us that while we look at the very aspect of technology development and deployment, which by itself a huge challenge for all of us, it is equally important that there is a need for proper technology, intelligence, forecasting, and foresight to be brought in place to develop the roadmap that can then help in what I call a technology development and deployment to start, honestly. Now, I do believe that India has a very large ecosystem. Over the last 70 years, the government has been constantly investing in creating both infrastructure and manpower for R&D. There has been a substantive change in the landscape where private sector is also now in a very, very proactive way involved in it. And what we feel is really the need to leverage the entire ecosystem in order to effectively deliver, in order to effectively actually map and deliver the technology requirements, both at the subnational, national, and international levels. And the effort of the ETI is actually in that direction, honestly. We are taking some very proactive steps. We know today that collaboration and partnership is so inevitable, so important. And COVID has shown us the way how we are cooperating within the country and outside the countries. Resources are limited, the manpower is limited, and effectively, if we can leverage this together, we feel that we can really make a win-win situation. So I must first at the beginning clarify that ETI is therefore a very open platform where we really want to develop a very collaborative and partnership mechanism of getting insights and inputs, and then developing pathways in which all of us can participate or partake. And in that, I see actually 5 major, I call them in the Indian sense, panchatantras, or the 5 pillars in that. One is the large number of more than 600 national R&D laboratories which are there in the country, a very large, vibrant academic setup that is now, coming up. The third is the enterprises and the startup ecosystem. India is now world's 3rd largest producer of startups in the world, and we can see a huge movement towards the deep tech startups that are really coming up. The fourth is, of course, the international community, the diaspora, and all that can come together to leverage and work with the government. Now, as far as the government is concerned, we are really now looking into how we really increase the landscape of R&D funding and R&D priorities. And one of the initiatives that has been recently launched is the Empowered Technology Group, which is actually chaired by the Principal Scientific Advisor himself. And the idea of the ETI is therefore to actually look at the technology requirements in a more holistic way, rather than just be confined to only the science and technology ministries or the agencies of the government, but look at the need of technology that is required all across in the line ministries of the government as well, be it textile ministry, be it highways, be it civil aviation, be it health, be it agriculture, be it disaster management, be it animal husbandry. They do need cutting edge technology. An idea also, therefore, is to involve all the line ministries and empower them and provide them with a technology foresight, a technology roadmap, and help them to actually work towards enabling them using technologies as the tool to deliver better. And in that context, of course, the question of indigenization of technologies will be very important, which is a critical element of what is the Atmanirbhar Bharat, where we actually, one of the important pillars of a technology-reliant country. That, of course, doesn't mean that, we would develop everything in-house. It, as I told you, needs collaboration, it needs partnership, both within the borders and across the borders. So to that extent, I think the ETI has a very, very important role to play, in providing us a sort of a pathway and a roadmap which India should embark upon to push the science and technology agenda forward. It's also a realization. It's definitely important for us, and don't take it otherwise, that we're just talking of technology. It's important for us also to invest in a big way in the blue sky research in some of the emerging areas like quantum technologies, which Ambassador Renu alluded to, artificial intelligence, machine learning, where basic and fundamental research is also important, because science leads to the pathway to technology development. And we do realize the importance of how important it is to balance discovery science and solution science, or rather what we believe as connecting the triad of research, education, and innovation, which I say knowledge generation is research, knowledge dissemination is education, and knowledge application is innovation, leading to technology development and deployment. And that needs a very well-defined roadmap in each and every sector. And the exercise that we plan to do through the ETI is really have a very open and a transparent platform where inputs from all of you could come, and we could, in a very shared manner, use that and employ that, and also involve you as a stakeholder in the process as we start implementing some of these strategies on the ground, working within the science ministries and agencies. More than 10 or 12 of them are there in this country. If I may just quickly allude to, for those who are outside, the Department of Science and Technology, the Biotechnology, the Indian Council for Agriculture Research, the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, the Indian Council for Medical Research or Department of Health Research, the Space Research, the Defense Research, the Nuclear Research, the Atomic Energy. All of these are going to be unshackled and unwinded in a way that most of the laboratories will now be open as much as possible and accessible to the community at large, to leverage this entire ecosystem, to give a push to technology development and deployment. And along with that, as I said, all the line ministries like the Ministry of IT, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Telecom, all of them would be actually brought in together to leverage this ecosystem. One more important aspect, which is very important today, is really data. And actually, data is the fuel to what we are talking in terms of quantum, AI, ML, and whatnot. So we are also trying to create what we call the digital architecture or the data stacks. The Prime Minister announced last month the health digital portal, and now we are working towards developing one on agriculture, and that would really, have a robust system how actually data is gathered, how data is collated, how data is analyzed, and how data is shared, and how data will be utilized across by all the players who are there in the ecosystem. So we are cognizant to do that, and your inputs also in preparing that would be very, very important, because again, we want to do a very bottom-up consultation in the process and make sure that every stakeholder's needs, aspirations, and ideas are plugged in as much as possible. And the last thing that I would allude to is, as we talk currently, we are also in the process of the National Science, Technology, Innovation Policy, which is under formulation. Therefore, your inputs through the ETI, in actually providing the contours of the policy will be very, very important, especially in the domain of technology intelligence, technology forecasting, and technology foresight, which I believe should be a very integral part of any STI policy, based on which I think, the connection between data, policy, and advice can be best worked out in the future. So these are my opening remarks, and I think my colleagues here are more adept now to answer your questions. And I think I would now once again thank you for joining us and hand over to Chagun to take this forward. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mitra, for that, putting on where ETI stands in terms of an open platform where stakeholders take equal ownership and drive it, not just be a participant in it. It's actually taking a equal ownership and equal stake in doing this and making it possible. Without further ado, let me ask Mr. Aditya Kaushik from the Water Futures and the Science Policy Forum to go through the entire procedure of ETI that we have planned out, and then from there we can take up some questions, whatever is there coming up in the social medias now. Yeah, Aditya, over to you.
Thank you, Chagun. Would you be able to share the presentation?
Yes, for sure. For just a minute.
Yeah,
you can start with your oral comment. I'll just share.
Yeah. Sure. So thank you, Chagun, and good evening, everybody. Thank you all for joining us live today. Dr. Mitra and Ambassador Pall have given us a great beginning on the importance of this initiative, the uniqueness of the fact that this initiative is open, and we want to involve all stakeholders to be equal participants in this model. The general relevance of emerging technology to society and governance, the pathways laid out, and the need to participate. I will run through a brief presentation on our vision, the process of this initiative, anticipated deliverables, and what we are actually looking to build. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. The vision of ETI is to understand, assess, predict implications of emerging technology on policy, governance, and society, and also strategize for technology development, reduction of our dependence on import, and large-scale technology absorption. Passively waiting for technological development is not feasible anymore. Through this initiative, we are piloting a model which has an integrated 5-stage approach that will give us a holistic understanding of emerging technologies with an aim to create competitive advantage. ETI is divided into 2 phases. The phase 1 will bring together teams of multidisciplinary stakeholders with an aim to build a holistic strategy paper that covers the entire technology management cycle from technology scouting to technology roadmap creation. And I'll go through each step in detail. And the phase 2 process, we will facilitate action-oriented stakeholder consultations with a view towards operationalizing the selected emerging technology roadmap that we receive at the end of the phase 1. Now, I will briefly talk about the specifics of some of the components within this entire technology management exercise and why this is so crucial as part of this initiative. Step 1 is called as technology scouting process, where teams will identify a specific technology or an innovation that is a result of this technology that is relevant and important to India. Technology scouting helps in screening of emerging tech in order to secure their competitiveness and their innovative ability. There have been several instances in the past where companies and industries have ignored or missed a crucial trend and slipped into insignificance. Case in point, I guess in the last couple of decades, we've noticed that companies like Nokia missed a trend towards smartphones. Kodak missed this trend towards digital photography. And this analogy can be extended to the innovation cycle of technologies of countries as well. So especially in the age of digitalization and digital transformation, where changes are occurring at a rapid pace, this is an extremely crucial step in anticipating potential technological changes. Can you go to the next slide, Chagun? This is an indicative list of 9 verticals and its associated innovations. It's on our website for you all to see, and Ambassador Pall went through some of these innovations. Say, for example, we know that artificial intelligence is permeating through all sectors with wide-ranging implications on society, security, geopolitics, and so on. So as part of this tech scouting process, you can pick an AI-based innovation, say, be it on autonomous vehicles or consumer robots or smart grids, intelligent transport systems, and so on. Another example would be, is on the topic of bioengineering. Just yesterday, we had a conversation with Dr. Renu on biotech and emerging technologies. Just following up on that, bioengineering is showing an accelerated pace of innovation with a wide range of applications in sectors of health, agriculture, environment. So you can pick any biosystem-based innovation, such as genome editing, next-generation sequencing, bioprinting, neural or tissue engineering, and so on. A disclaimer here that this is just an indicative list. This is not a comprehensive list. We have identified 9 verticals and some horizontals. It's up to you what kind of emerging technology and innovation that you would want to pick. If you have any concerns or suggestions, you could contact us to discuss about specific verticals and horizontals that you want to propose as part of this initiative. So the next 2 steps are technology landscaping and technology assessment. And the objective is to assess the current capacities of emerging tech, say in terms of HR, human resources, what are the trends of technological development, gaps, along with technical maturity and assessment of the competitor landscape. This forms a crucial element, before we start investing in development of any technology. This process also involves identifying potential white spaces or hotspots that meet all the necessary conditions to deploy this technology. And the final stage of this process will be to evaluate potential, technology funding mechanisms, normative legal policy and governance frameworks, or the lack thereof of these frameworks, identify knowledge flows and other interlinkages, determine what is the best path to achieve the greatest return on investment. Ideally, in these 2 steps, we want to sort of see a comprehensive quantitative assessment nationally, at least, and an understanding of the international landscape. Now, going back to our example of Nokia, lack of understanding of the competitive landscape in the form of Apple, the lack of understanding of their own operating systems, the limitation of it, the platform's technological maturity with respect to its competitors. Lack of understanding of these ideas sort of made Nokia lose its advantage over the last over the last couple of decades. So this process really helps anticipate potential changes in the future, understand your competitive landscape, and also help build competitive advantage and combat potential ripple effects. So the next step is called technology forecasting. And from a technology perspective itself, identification of future trends with respect to its development, readiness, and maturity is extremely critical and very important to understand. And these emerging technologies are undoubtedly advancing growth, be it socially or economically, but are also redefining concepts of privacy, ethics, and cybersecurity. And it's important and imperative to understand that the future risks and opportunities and anticipate disruption in industry, employment, equity, and so on. This process will help us understand the opportunity cost of not actively pursuing any of these emerging technologies, and laying out comparative charts of, say, business as usual scenario versus active investment in a particular emerging technology is actually very crucial to help make smart decisions. The last step of this model is the technology roadmap for technology roadmap creation for indigenization. This is the last mile of the process. Laying out an indigenization roadmap is a mandatory component of this process. We want to understand how the identified emerging tech can be developed, deployed at scale in India. In addition, the roadmap can look at creation of enabling environments from legal, policy, and governance perspective. And this process will help build self-reliance capabilities and also help us acquire competitive advantage at a global stage. This roadmap can also include ways to operationalize the involvement of startups and diaspora, which is very crucial for technology and knowledge transfer and diffusion. From the point of view of the process itself, the uniqueness of our approach through this exercise is that we're looking to build up an integrated 5-stage process that will give us a complete understanding of emerging tech and its associated innovation, and an aim to understand our demand-driven requirements, build competitive advantage in India as well as abroad. And from the point of view of stakeholder involvement, I think we are, as part of this process, we are incentivizing participation of deep tech startups, diaspora, and funding bodies. So these are some of the elements of the uniqueness of emerging tech initiative. Now, to participate in this initiative, we would request you to submit an expression of interest of a particular technology or an innovation, encapsulating the 5 elements of the technology management exercise that I just alluded to. And please submit an expression of interest. It doesn't have to be a long drawn-out document, just over 500 words, a brief synopsis on the identified technology, on why you're sort of pursuing, why have you chosen this technology, and how would this potential roadmap look like, and the team composition by November. And please submit this to partnership at the sciencepolicyforum.org by October 16th. It's exactly a month from now. And by November 30th, you will be notified of the selection of these expressions of interest. And the shortlisted teams will be asked to submit a consolidated technology strategy paper that incorporates all the 5 elements of the technology management cycle. And the date of submission of the strategy paper will be notified as we move forward. Now, for participation, I think its participation is open to Indian citizens, NRIs, persons of Indian origin, as for foreign collaboration. It's also a team-based exercise. Maximum of 10 members. We want a multidisciplinary, we encourage a multidisciplinary, multi-institution team. Looking at all of these problems, as Dr. Mitra spoke about earlier, looking at all of these problems from a business, technology, international relations, public policy, technology design perspective, looking at it from all these different vantage points is very crucial to provide a holistic understanding of the strategy paper. So we encourage a multidisciplinary, multi-institution team. You can participate as an individual, but within a team structure, and preference will be given to teams that include members from the Indian startup industry and diaspora. And finally, apart from these tangible, outcomes or deliverables of strategy paper, roadmaps, and potentially in ETI phase 2 of this action-oriented stakeholder consultation process, as a spillover effect of this initiative, we are also looking to map technology and innovation hubs in India to anticipate policy implications of emerging tech, build a comprehensive technology intelligence database for these identified technologies, and your strategy paper will form a significant component of this process. Look to build and connect individuals, entities, organizations who are interested in thinking and acting at the intersection of science, tech, and innovation, and develop and strengthen the technology knowledge capacity of central and state ministries, departments, industries, startups, with the help of this technology intelligence database. So please reach out to us at partnership at the sciencepolicyforum.org. Chagun, can you go to the next slide? And if you have any questions, visit our website, www.thesciencepolicyforum.org for more information. Thank you again for joining us live today. And now I'll stop here, and I guess we'll open the floor for questions.
Thank you, Aditya. Before take the public questions, because there are so many questions that are already answered in your presentation in terms of logistic details, like what is the date and how do we put it and what is the format and all of that. Before taking any other substantial question, I would like to quickly ask Dr. Mitra or Ambassador Pall if they have any comments to add at this point, or any reflections to make.
I think, yeah, that's fine. Let us open out and just, some feedback from people who are participating. I don't have much to add beyond this.
Sure.
I think let's do that, and then we can add later, depending on the questions.
Sure. I'll then quickly use the remaining time. We have around 22 minutes in our scheduled slot. So I'll quickly take some of the pressing questions which are necessary to be answered on call. And some of the questions I'll just myself take a judgment to put it on the website, which is more of a logistic question. So the first question from YouTube, I think a funding body from a state government is asking, can an associate government organization, like an autonomous institution of a state government, be part of this team? Is there any limitation or condition? Before I let any of you answer this question, let me say that right now we have Dr. Mitra, Aditya, Kaushik, Ambassador Pall, and also Suryesh. I missed introducing him because we're just having him also answering some of the questions in this session. Suryesh is with us in Science Policy Forum, also in the DST Center for Policy Research, handling the Policy Fellowship Program. He's a program officer for that Policy Fellowship Program, as well as running some of the activities for the ETI in the Science Policy Forum. He will also be answering some of the questions. So this is the first question. Can a state government autonomous institution be part of the team in submitting the expression of interest? Aditya, would you like to take this question in terms of eligibility?
Yes, I think absolutely. We encourage involvement from any body, especially state bodies. There's no restriction of who can or cannot participate within the participation criteria that I listed out. Perhaps Ambassador Pall might have, or Dr. Mitra might have a more detailed reply to that question.
You are muted.
We are fine with the answer that Aditya has given. only to emphasize that ETI, as Dr. Arabinda explained, is inclusive. And we are going to evolve it as a mechanism depending on the enthusiasm and the participation support that we get from all of you. So we would welcome actually state bodies to get involved. We are not going to restrict ETI only to the line ministries of the central government. The real need for technologies is also in the states. And it's a welcome thing. The more, the merrier, I would say.
Perfect. The second question I'm going to take is from Amit Singh Dio. Is again asking in YouTube, can participation in this initiative articulate a new form of or strengthen some of the existing form of public-private partnership model in India to function in technology development and deployment? I would request, because he has used Dr. Mitra's name to get his thoughts on it. Dr. Mitra, would you like to take it up?
Yeah, but that's a very interesting question. As I told you, for all these activities that we take as a follow-up for technology development and deployment, it cannot be an onus or an activity confined to a particular, player in the ecosystem. The entire ecosystem needs to be leveraged. So public-private partnership is a very essential component in technology development. So we are within the government looking at how to define and refine the public-private partnership in technology development and deployment, so that the ease of doing PPP and its nuances are also very well laid out, so that the partnership can take place in a win-win situation. So certainly this is very important. Partnerships of all types of enterprises, including industries, the MSMEs and the startups is very important. A consortia approach, and we do believe that most of these emerging technology areas that the government would be actually promoting or funding or supporting will have a mechanism that allows every stakeholder to participate. In fact, we are even looking at perhaps to put in policies in place where some of these activities or projects or technology development and deployment could be led by industry, along with the possibility of a window for academia or laboratories to participate. The other way around is currently happening in the country. So we would like to address all these issues. And we are looking at a very open consultative process that would define and redefine the PPP model in R&D development and deployment. Over.
Thank you, Dr. Mitra. I think that's a very interesting thought from him, as well as a very interesting answer from you. I think we are looking forward to something tangible and new also coming in terms of PPP model that is emerging from this initiative. Because when we emphasized on multidisciplinary and multi-institution team and saying diaspora, funding body, all of them coming together, it for sure opens up a lot of opportunities for new models of PPP models. Let me take the next immediate question that has already come in from the Twitter. I'll ask Suryesh to allude to it. Why there are two phases and what exactly these two phases of ETI are meant for? Suryesh?
So thanks, Chagun. So first phase is basically to get people to involved in the process. So people will be submitting their expressions of interest first, and based on the shortlisting of those expressions of interest, we'll have the strategy roadmaps coming from them. This is in phase 2. This roadmap will be further deliberated upon by the experts from the government, from outside government, from academia, from all different stakeholders. And this deliberation will in phase 2 would possibly go into the policy making process. The recommendation will be taken into account during the policy making process, and also operationalization of all those recommendations. So this will be deliberated by all stakeholders in government and outside, and we'll see how we can develop a comprehensive consolidated roadmap for tech development adoption that has all various elements in it, including from policy perspective, from law, from international relations from all those sides. So this is basically idea of having two phases. First phase is initially open to everyone, and only the selected parties will be, will go into the phase 2 and will be involved in that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Suryesh. I think that's pretty clear. And before we move on to the next question, Dr. Mitra, based on your answer, the person who posed the question, Amit Singh Dio, has responded again saying they are for sure submitting an EOI from FTA Consulting, that they had already had an interaction with you on submitting some cutting edge disruptive innovation area, and that's a good outcome of that question and answer, I would say. Let me quickly move on to the next question about the incentives to participate, no matter who participates. What are the incentives to participate, especially for startup and industry bodies? I think this question is directed towards Ambassador Pall.
I think the startups and the industry bodies could be a very useful part of the exercise, and as stakeholders could bring a lot to the table. You could very well have an assessment of the emerging technologies that would be of relevance to India. You would have some plan of operationalizing it. You would have a strategy, therefore, and that is extremely relevant to phase 2, when we hope that you will be put together, and we, the three partners, would work as your synapses to connect you to those people within the governments or other stakeholders who you need to operationalize your idea of emerging technologies. So, ETI is not just an academic exercise. As we've said before, it is seeking to link the different verticals. And industry, startup industry or regular industry, is a very important stakeholder of taking knowledge and science and ideas to the field, and to make it affordable, scalable, indigenize it, and make it available to India, to the citizens in India, and even beyond. Because technology mapping, technology demonstration, technology usage is what ETI is all about. More importantly, I think the exercise of doing this will allow us to understand what are the norms that we should be looking to put in place for the governance of these emerging technologies on the national scene and on an international scene. So industry, startups, regular industry are very important stakeholders, because you are really the practical partners. You are the partners who would make technology ideas, developments by the scientists and researchers become reality on the ground.
Thank you, Ambassador Pall. I think I would check with Dr. Mitra if you would like to add anything with respect to startups involvement, because he's been involved in a lot of discussions these days about how to get the startups at the center stage of innovation ecosystem. Dr. Mitra, your thoughts on this?
Well, I would just add to what Renu talked. The fact that over the last 10 years, the government has been proactively engaged in promoting the startup ecosystem in the country. And I'm glad that together, through a consultative process, we have reached to a stage wherever we are today. And now we are in the next phase of looking at, how do we further strengthen this ecosystem? And therefore, partnership and involvement of the startup in this exercise would be very critical in terms of putting policies and programs in place that would further enable this community in the country. I must add here that for most of the national R&D missions that we take up in the emerging areas of quantum, deep ocean, biodiversity, you name it, or genomics, or waste to wealth, we have taken a conscious decision that startups are going to be an integral part as a stakeholder in participation in these missions. So therefore, the involvement of startups is very, very important, especially both in their own context and also for us to make the pathways more friendly, more accessible, and more participative.
Thank you, Dr. Mitra. I think There are a few repeated questions about the eligibility criteria. Aditya, I would like you to answer that. Our Subir Singh and Rima Saini and two couple more are asking, one, can an incubator be a team member or propose an EOI? And can a registered society, a non-governmental organization, be a member in any of the team? Aditya, do you like to clarify anything? I think Ambassador Paul already said more the merrier. I think Devil's detail has to go detail there.
No, absolutely. Just to echo what Ambassador Paul mentioned, more the merrier, especially with entities like incubators and accelerators who are in the business of mentoring and connecting people. It completely aligns with different groups, especially the startups. They look at issues related to funding. They look at issues related to say technology adoption and so on and so forth. So having accelerators, incubators will be we will welcome those inputs or their involvement in our initiative. Regarding associated, you mentioned societies, right? So I'm not sure what do they work.
Already I have a list here: registered society, academic think tanks, incubator centers, and IP cells. Can these be members of any of the teams that submit EOI?
Yeah, short answer is yes.
Ambassador Paul, yes, please.
I think I just add one line to that. When you become part of a team, your eligibility as part of that team will be determined by what you bring to the table for that team. So, broad heads is what we can indicate, but
Yes.
we'll really look at your EOI to see what is it that your team members are bringing to the table and how sound is your team. And I think that is a fair measure to go by to assess whether an EOI comes up in our immediate shortlist.
Right.
Thank you, Ambassador Paul. I think the next question I'm going to take, avoiding all the logistic questions, is about, again, participation of international actors. There is a question about, I think, again, those are our embassy friends who are asking this, international startups or startups which has connect with Indian ecosystem, if they are not persons of Indian origin, can they still participate in this? And this question is directed towards Dr. Mitra here.
I'll first take the views of Renu and certainly then augment that further. Yeah.
Ambassador Paul, I know I am in trouble now. Please go ahead.
Coming from the Ministry of External Affairs, the short answer is yes. We would be happy actually to see international collaboration. Also, because a lot of emerging technology is the way they're progressing. It really needs a meeting of minds. It really needs collective effort in every sense of the word to develop the technologies, to develop the applications on the ground, and then also to develop the normative structures for these technologies, because ultimately you want to be looking at responsible and effective use. Arabinda?
Yeah, thank you. As a person who has been almost more than 3/4 of the career involved in international science and technology collaboration and innovation space as well, it's a big yes. We do believe that today, it is important to leverage the international collaboration to create a win-win situation. As I alluded earlier, these problems that we are looking into are very global in nature, and no country alone can answer these problems. And we have seen this, the pandemic and other disasters, and also the global climate change, its effects and impacts beyond any particular country or a region or an individual or institution. So I think the doors are always open, and we would be proactively engaging and encouraging partnership. But these partnerships would be all on a give and take basis. In science and technology and innovation, we do not believe in donor-recipient relationship. It has to create a two-way push and pull, where I think both sides stand to gain. As long as that is clear, we would be more than happy to have international participation, especially large number of countries with whom we are already collaborating. And I know many of the embassies here, their science consulars have expressed their intent to engage proactively, and certainly we would look forward to their participation in this.
Thank you, Dr. Mitra. Thank you, Ambassador Paul, for that. I know they got the answer, but I'm in a soup because there are going to be continuous discussion here asking like, okay, then what an ideal team looks like. That sounds like a very interesting question. Although we are going to run out of time, we will not take much beyond our scheduled time. I would personally like this question to be answered. What would an ideal team look like, so that people can get an idea like, okay, how to form a team, maybe let's say from today. Any of you would like to take it up? They are also given some examples like a large industry plus a startup plus an academic think tank, one diaspora member who is working in a foreign industry, and a university in US or somewhere. How does ideal team look like for ETI? Aditya, do you wanna take this and then we go around?
Sure. No, I think it is an interesting question. It's something that we've deliberated upon too. We cannot obviously sit and say, okay, coming from XYZ organizations makes a very good team. It's what Ambassador Paul alluded to earlier about what is the competence and what is the what will be the contribution of the team members, either representing as individuals as part of the team or the organization that is coming in. So depending on what they bring in, keeping in mind that we're looking for a holistic strategy paper, looking at it from various angles, from the technology development itself, technology adoption, from say an IR lens, from a public policy lens, from a design perspective. So a competence in those areas would make a very good team. So I guess that is the answer that I can give. Maybe Dr. Mitra or Ambassador Paul can add.
Yeah, I think the one more aspect is very, very critical here. When we are talking of technology intelligence, we also do look into the techno-commercial importance of the technology, its marketplace, its acceptability, its adaptability, and that's very important aspect that needs to be kept in mind, which often a technology developer or a scientist may miss out, and that is something that we really need to keep in mind. The business proposition in terms of its market value and its potential is a very critical element that has to be looked into when we talk of a technology roadmap.
Yes, thanks so much, Dr. Mitra and Aditya, for that answer. I think Mr. Harman Bhatia has got his answer now, and we will. It's exactly 7. I would like to take one last question, and then probably we'll summarize, and then whatever other questions are, we can address it offline. This question is directed towards both Ambassador Paul and Dr. Mitra with respect to the spearheading role that these two offices are doing, because there are large-scale technology governance mechanisms at the apex level that the Office of PSA is driving and leading right now, including the ETG that you mentioned, Dr. Mitra. How would you see the outcomes or exercises that are going to roll out from the ETI's perspective, Emerging Technology Initiative perspective, the strategy paper or the expression of interest? How would it actually benefit some of the ongoing initiative with respect to Office of PSA initiatives such as ETG and PM Stack?
That's a very relevant question, and in fact, something which I perhaps didn't mention earlier. As a part of the Empower Technology Group, now every ministry and department of Government of India has identified a technology officer. And the role of the technology officer is going to be very important in terms of understanding and appreciating the requirements of each department and ministry in terms of providing the enabling technology roadmaps. And therefore, the ETI very important role in hand-holding many of these ministries to evolve and shape their technology roadmap, and also how to really implement it on ground in terms of developing prototypes, field testing them, and then upscaling them, along with a policy that is also connected with what we call a preferential procurement policy. So the ETG is actually looking into three verticals: the research, the policy, and the procurement. And we do understand, as I told last time, the need for, when we develop a technology, its economic viability, its business viability, its commercial plan also needs to be supported and given a clear direction. So to that extent, I believe the exercise by the ETI is going to be very, very important to understand the requirements, what is happening internationally, what is futuristic, what is requirement for specifically for the country, and alluding to what we started our discussion on self-reliant technologies for India. I think this is going to be very, very important as far as the PSA's office is concerned. So this is a new role, and many countries who may be participating, like UK, Israel, have what they call as technology officers or science advisors in each of the ministry to help actually connect. And in a big country like India, where, as in many countries, in fact, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and this is a big challenge, really. And the role of the PSA's office, the PM STIAC and ETG is essentially to bring all these ministries together. It's not an easy task, but certainly they do realize that the interconnectivity is so critical, so important, and that is what we are trying to push. So when we talk of developing a technology may be developed for a particular ministry, but it may be useful for a good road or a port connectivity or a rail connectivity, which may have to be provided by the transport ministry, may really impact the tourism of a place. So how do we connect this? How do we enable this through the technology linkages is something very, very important that we are looking. So it's a very holistic approach that we are trying to do, is trying to bring in place by having all the stakeholders participating in this. So to that extent, I think the ETI will play a very, very important role, I believe, the outputs of the ETI.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mitra, for those encouraging words. And Ambassador Pall, I think this is a similar question, but it has a very different, not a very different, but a connected background to it. ETG also mentions clearly, Empowered Technology Group also mentions clearly a role of MEA in making sure that the proper international connect is met in India's technology needs. And MEA's new technology division that you're heading, new strategic and emerging technologies division, NEST. I'm just messing it up. I'm really sorry for that. But you should correct me now when you're saying it. The NEST division, what is the role of NEST division in ETI, as well as how ETI will help NEST division to achieve its mandate, both way around?
Well, the short answer to that is that I think they're all interconnected. These are different paths to the same objective. And as the new emerging strategic technologies division in the Ministry of External Affairs, NEST, as our role basically as part of the ETG is obviously to facilitate the synapses, the interlocutors, the partnerships, the coming together between the different stakeholders in India and the ones outside of India internationally in different countries. And these could be not just the governments, but also the institutions, the scientists, the researchers, the practitioners, the industry. So it's across the board, and it's a wide synaptic kind of arrangement. And we hope that we will build up depth of our missions in all of these countries to enable these partnerships. Now, on how ETI would feed into what we are trying to do, I think ETI is really showing a very participative, a very inclusive approach to going beyond the traditional stakeholders, to actually, as I said, I use the word crowdsourcing because it's enlarging the participation base. It's giving freedom of definition of the criteria or the norms of participation to the participants. And we hope by that, really, that we can take a holistic approach through learning by practical experience. So if you have an EOI, which is in a particular area of technology, then as you traverse the road from beginning to end, developing a holistic team, developing your partnerships and interfaces, where we would be your synapses, we hope that through your experience, we would also be learning. It will be a process which will allow all of us to learn. The scientists, the industry, the startups, the accelerators would achieve their objective of growth of a particular emerging technology. We would achieve the objective of seeing how this evolves, and therefore what is the facilitative environment which needs to become the norm rather than an exception, or and that is how it feeds into the larger policy dialogues. It is ultimately, the idea is to bring together everyone on the same sheet of music when they are trying to create the policy and the normative framework, and when they're trying to create the practical relationships and partnerships and pooling of resources. And resources doesn't mean only financial, it means also the technical, the expert level, the scientific resources for the technological aspects. So we are all trying to do the same thing. If we do it sequentially, it'll take us decades. So what's been happening, particularly in this year, since the beginning of this year that I have seen it happen with the PSA itself and with the PSA's office, is that there are multiple initiatives. And to be fair, we must say that some of the 9 ministries are taking some very, very far-reaching policy measures as well. DBT, you've just heard from the Secretary of DBT yesterday in your talk. So there are different efforts to change and transform the science and technology scenario in India to make it more participative, more delivery-oriented is what I would say than before, so that at the end of the road, we have emerging technologies, existing technologies become more and more a part of our daily lives. And it's not a realm that only specialists can talk about. It's something that the common man is using all the while. I mean, AI and blockchain and IoT, etc., are terms which not many people understood until a few months or years ago. But now more and more people, ask the younger generations, they know it much better than the older ones. And that's the way forward. So that's what we're trying to do. And Next Division will be partnering in any such agenda, in any such initiative, to further the cause of emerging technologies, which can be strategic in different senses.
A perfect word to end with for an ambassador, strategic in any senses. That's ambiguous enough and people can pick it up in any sense. Thank you so much. I'm not going to elaborate on that. We'll end.
We have to keep the conversation going.
I got the hook. So, Aditya, would you like to just say what is the final date and then say a final thank you on behalf of this, so that for the EOIs, and then we'll end the show within a minute. Aditya, you're muted.
No, I just wanted to say thank you everybody for participating in this conversation, and everybody on YouTube watching this live. Let me just reiterate that that the date to submit the expression of interest is 16th of October. You have about a month from now. If you have any questions, or if you want to discuss whether a particular EOI fits into or aligns with our initiative, please don't hesitate to contact us. Our email address is partnership@sciencepolicyforum.org. So it's also in the YouTube comment section. You can also visit our website for all the details. So whatever we've spoken about today, the details of the presentation, everything is onto the website. So please visit the website and go through the information. I'll just end it by saying, as the proverb says, right, may you live in an interesting time. I think it's true not just in terms of what 2020 has thrown at us, but also in terms of all the rapid changes that we see around today. And most of it is accelerated by technology. Luckily, these technologies also offer us an opportunity to not just perceive these changes, but also possibly adapt and improve our quality of life, keeping in mind that the right models and processes are in place. And I think at this moment, these are some of the things that are operating very well in the structure, and this initiative is one such opportunity. So I encourage everybody to apply and participate and reach out to us if you have any questions.
Yeah, thanks so much, Aditya. I'm going to end it in the next 1 minute. Before that, I'll just like to say the expression of interest, like Aditya said, it's 16th of October, and we have exactly 1 month to go. And the evaluation criteria and all the logistic questions that are asked are already answered in the website of ETI. The site will also be posted in the YouTube comment section. And there are going to be more such information sessions, but those are all going to be focused ones to some of the teams who already approach with some idea. So that this one will be recorded and used as an informational video, the one that we had now. This will be circulated widely to know more about the discussions that we just had. But the other ones will be closed door, focused conversations. Some of them probably might be on focused technology areas itself. So feel free to reach out to us. And also the information is available with Office of PSA and NEST division, either through existing contacts or through the contacts that are communicated to you. Please feel free to reach. With that, let me say thank you to everyone who joined and who made this event possible. Thanks to Dr. Arabinda Mitra, who joined us, took time up on his busy schedule. He rearranged one of the meeting to stay the entire duration. Thank you so much, Dr. Mitra. And Ambassador Pall, thank you really so much for not just joining the session today, but also continuously engaging in brainstorming and as well as setting the entire tone of this this initiative as well as the session today. With that, I'm going to end the live session. I would request you to stay online for a minute so that we'll take a photograph and then